So let's get into chapter 4. Let's, kind of wave goodbye to chapter 3 for this time. And some of you might want to go back over there and really do some extra work on chapter 3. And that's great. Okay. Now, verse 1, back to the narrative. So it happened, when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, that he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. Now, we were introduced to Sanballat at the beginning of the beginning of the book. We got into chapter 2, okay? Here's what we know a little bit about Sanballat, okay? Sanballat the Horonite, and has a couple of buddies along with him. One of them is Tobiah, the other one is Geshem, okay? When Sanballat, verse 10, chapter 2, and Tobiah, the official, heard of it, they were deeply disturbed that a man had come to seek the well-being of the children of Israel. So immediately when they hear that Nehemiah is coming down to help the Jews of Jerusalem, they're disturbed. They were deeply disturbed. We find them again in the 19th verse of the 2nd chapter, when Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, I'm just, skipping over their titles, they laughed at us and despised us. So, they're doing everything right now that they can, and you see the progression of it. At first, they're deeply disturbed, but they don't say much. And then toward the end of the 2nd chapter, they're scorning them. They're mocking them. They laughed at us and despised us and said, "What is this thing that you are doing?" Now, progress from the 19th verse of the 2nd chapter all the way to the 1st verse of the 4th chapter, there's been a lot of progress that has gone down. And it happened, and that's the way the 1st chapter starts off with, it happened when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall. He was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. Oh, now it's not just a funny thing anymore. Now it's not just a little, well, what are these guys? And it was all to discourage them. That's what it was. It's always this fear and this thought that the enemy would try to put into your mind. Sanballat is just being used by the powers of darkness. And just trying to discourage the people. Oh, you guys can't do this, so why do you even want to start? Oh, it's too big for you. Come on, what are you little guy? Don't even start. Well, now the work has started, and they're rebuilding the wall. Things are going according to plan. In fact, things are going better than the plan. Most of the time we have expectations. Our expectations aren't met, so we're hurt. Well, the expectations are being exceeded here in Jerusalem. There's a touch of God on the work that they're doing. People have come together. We talked about this Friday, about the communal aspect of the different people from the different towns and the different subsets of the culture that had shown up and that they're working and they're doing it. The only ones that we really kind of have a hard time with, it wasn't there the officials of the Tekoites. They didn't want to get their hands dirty. But the work is proceeding. It hasn't finished yet. If we read just chapter 3 alone, we say, well, it's done. They finished. No, it's not quite done yet. But so it happened, okay, when Sanballat heard. In fact, I need to look at something here. Maybe I missed it at the end of chapter 3. Let me see if I... no, it doesn't say that yet. It's probably in chapter 4 about them having about half of the wall finished. They had gone up about half of the way. Well, anyway, Sanballat heard they were building there. He's furious and very indignant. Well, excuse me. affected at once. Here's Webster's talking about indignant, affected at once with anger and disdain, feeling the mingled emotions of wrath and scorn or contempt. Ooh, how dare they? Who do they think they are, these Jews, this guy that came and he spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria and said, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are burned? You know what the problem is here? The problem is that Sanballat has had access to the people in Jerusalem. It's kind of like in the time of, in the time of the Judges? Remember when we were in the book of Judges and the defenses of Judah and Benjamin and the southern kingdom were very low. They were very weak. And the Philistines would come during the harvest season and they would steal the crops from God's people. And then they burn whatever was left over, and then they, left the Jews always in dire straits. And Sanballat was probably enjoying that. Sanballat was coming in and taking the best of whatever he wanted, and then making sure that they didn't have very much, and he was controlling them. Now the handle that he has on them is starting to slip out of his hands. I mean, what is it that the enemy, the enemy will try to do everything that he can. Listen to me this morning. The enemy will try to do everything that he can to keep you from being born again. Oh, that is a Protestant thing, and that's just for those crazy people. And, it's a biblical doctrine. It's right there. And if we're going to use the Bible, if that's going to be our filter, you can either try to deny it, and then what else are you going to deny? What else are you going to jump over? Or else you can face it eyeball to eyeball and say, well, there's something here for me. Bring me in. I want to see the kingdom. Not only do I want to see the kingdom, I want to enter the kingdom, and the way I can do that is by being born again. Or being born from above, if the born again thing is having, doesn't give you the warm fuzzies. But you can expect that the enemy is going to try to do everything that he can. I mean, I remember the days that the enemy had, I was at his beck and call. And then I started hearing about being born again, and things were happening in my life that were trying to keep me away. And then you've made that decision to be born again. The enemy has not finished yet. He's going to keep you from advancing, keep you from progressing, keep you from growing in the grace and the knowledge of your Lord Jesus Christ. Sanballat tried everything to discourage him in the second chapter. Now he's really getting mad. And he spoke, verse 2 again says, before his brethren and the army of Samaria. Samaria was from the northern part of Israel. We remember where the name Samaria came from, what it meant, all that stuff, because we've been there when we got into the book of Kings, into the book of Chronicles, especially the book of Kings. He spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria. Now it's getting touchy. Now we're start talking about the army. And now this is his opportunity to muster his people for evil and not for good. What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves?